Hey everyone, these podcasts wouldn't be possible. Certainly our podcasts in Newmarket, Aurora, Georgina around wouldn't be possible without sponsors. And we want to give a shout out to Market Brewing Company. They've been partnering with us in the Snap sense and doing music together all summer through COVID. They're certainly a COVID responsible company, but their tap room is open and now they've actually come back to life. We're happy to say that they've got lots of gigs going on from bingo. They have food trucks and food vendors. They have Thursday night comedy jams. They have Friday night music with Snapped. They have Saturday afternoon live music gigs in support of charities. So they're doing a lot of stuff right now. We want to support them and they're supporting us. So you can check out their website to stay up to date with what's going on. It's marketbrewingco.com and stay up to date with them and have fun with them. See you guys. Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations in Newmarket with Neighbur. Our first episode. I want to welcome our guests. We want to thank our sponsors who you just heard, but I want to welcome our guests to the show. We've got Bob Quapis, who's a counselor in town, and he represents the downtown core of Newmarket, a lot of vibrant activity in the downtown core. We have sitting beside me, who's in my bubble and who's rapidly become one of my best friends, is Manny DeGrandis. He's a local musician. He's been doing lots of great things during COVID, musical things and keeping everyone active and supporting each other. And we have Andrea Peterson, who's coming to us from home, I think. And Andrea used to work at Snapped, and so we know her from those days. But she's a really good friend, and she's now working with Easter Seals and in fundraising and events. And she's going to tell us some of her challenges and what's been going on with her. So welcome, everybody, to the show.
Well, thank you, Paul. That was wonderful, and appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on the first show. So maybe I'll just go around and I'm going to ask some questions, but I want to encourage you guys to ask each other questions. It's supposed to be, I want to get in a little bit behind you, and maybe we'll start with you, Bob, because I'm staring at you across this plexiglass COVID thing that we're probably seeing reflections everywhere. Bob, how'd you end up in Newmarket?
Oh, that's a good question. And first of all, before I go there, I do want to thank you for setting up the plexiglass and social distancing that we have over here, and the hand sanitizer everywhere. So this is fantastic. It's good to see that process and continuity throughout the neighborhood. How did I end up in Newmarket? Well, let's just say that I was raised in the Bloor West Village area, the High Park area. And once we decided to have a family, I thought, well, it would be nice to have a family somewhere where we're just a smaller town where everybody gets to know each other. Everybody cares for each other and looks out for each other's kids. And we chose Newmarket. Well, back then it was just around 30,000 people. And believe it or not, we're around 90,000, but the feel is still the same. That community
is cool. So I didn't even realize we have some parallel things. I grew up in the Kingsway area, but when I graduated university, I moved into Bloor West Village. I lived there a long time.
Oh,
so we'll talk about that
there.
After the show. We'll talk about all the delicatessens and stuff that we used to hit. So Andrea, I know you're now working for Easter Seals. So how did that come about? Have you always had a passion for sort of charity work? Or
well, I actually have. I have always wanted to start giving back and helping where I could, and it was something that I did hope to do eventually long term in my career. So I was fortunate enough. What was it? 6 years ago? Well, I think I was at the very first Dancing with the Stars event where you danced, and it was inspiring.
Manny wants to be a dancer, just so you know. I know you're not maybe doing it this year, but Manny's sitting beside me. He's like, I need a pipeline to be a dancer with Dancing with the Stars. And look, he's got these flowing locks, so he could be this like Adonis type character on it. He could raise a lot of money for you. I'm confident of that.
I kind of got that feeling from Manny that he might be interested in that.
Yeah. He's got like his toe taps playing music all the time, so it's not too far of an extension for him to be dancing, right, Matt?
Yeah. Nice bust you just threw me under.
Anyway, sorry, Andrea.
So I was That's okay. I was at that very first event, and it was probably the most amazing event that I had ever gotten to go to. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to be a part of it. And I got fortunate enough to be asked the following year to be a dancer. And I got to compete against Rob Clark and Chris Emanuel and Jen Buchanan Peets and Nikki Petz, Tony DePede, and we just had a blast. Like, and on top of having fun, we were doing so many good things for the kids who need help, kids with physical disabilities, and raising money to help those kids and getting their equipment. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I got to be fortunate enough to stay involved with that event, whether it was go to the event or be a part of it through judging, and just built the relationships with Charlene and with Jessica, and they asked me to be a part of the team last year.
Nice.
So it was a great opportunity for me.
And we're going to circle back and find out maybe some of your challenges or some of the ideas you're thinking about. I mean, I should tell you about the premise of this show is getting, multiple people in our community coming together, kind of chit-chatting as if we're having a coffee or a beer together. And everyone, I've talked about Andrea doesn't really drink that much, but I have had drinks with. So it's good to, and maybe more drinks than coffees actually. But the premise of this show is we're just chit-chatting, having some fun, and hopefully being inspiring for each other and connecting us and keeping that same community, like Bob, you addressed, like 30,000 people kind of vibe going on. Because that's what I think Newmarket, and I think a lot of communities in Ontario are like, that they have this vibe, and everyone knows the councillors and the mayors and the hockey coaches and the musicians and the people that work for Easter Seals. So it's a matter of just getting behind it. Now, Manny, you're like a groovy cat here sitting beside me. And, how'd you get into music? Like, were you like a little kid and you started banging on the drum, or how did that come about?
I just always loved music. It was my getaway. It was my getaway when I was a kid growing up. It was just, it was the only thing that it was like it was every time I would turn on the song or my radio, put my headphones on and my Walkman, it would take me to a happy place, essentially, I guess it was.
And how old were you when that kind of happened?
I just, I always had a Walkman from, I don't know how young I was. And then from there, I was like, I could actually learn how to play this stuff. And then joined a band, and it was so much fun through high school.
Cool.
We were like, just a gang of guys, and just playing and throwing on
So
shows.
even to that end, I know, Manny, like you and I got together when the whole bad COVID thing happened, and we sort of, strategized on how we could support the charities like Andrea's and musicians, because you guys are obviously super impacted by the whole thing. So how'd that all come about?
Yeah.
Where has it been going, and what kind of money are we raising? What's going on?
Yeah, it's great. We kind of spoke right at the beginning of COVID, and you kind of mentioned something. Oh, we should, do something, right? And then we didn't do anything for a while, and then I finally called you and said, I need to play. Like, I'm doing these videos on Facebook and this split screen stuff, and it's not playing. So, me and Ryan want to play a gig. I'll do it, I was going to do it in front of my driveway, and then I decided to call you to make it a bit bigger. And while we're doing that, wanted to try to, do a charity a week, so that we could raise money also for not just us, but the charities, and, keep your name out there, your brand, and then and I always wanted to get, bars involved. So we got Market Brewing involved, and just try to get as much community as
Yeah, a
you
lot
want,
of cool
right?
things have come out of that. And I was saying to Bob before, probably for musicians and charities, I think we've, just quick projections off the top of my head, I think we've raised something like 30 grand or 35 grand or
That's
something
amazing,
like that.
Paul.
And it's actually grown into, like, we're doing these big concerts. Like we've got at Snapped, which is our parent company, if you will. We've done like bigger concerts in the park. Then from that, we had a comedian contact us and say, hey, what if we did comedy nights? So I now know we're doing comedy nights. And so I think like COVID to me has inspired a lot of things, even this podcasting thing. And I think, you look at the US and everyone's fighting, you got polarization, but I think as Canadians, somehow I feel like we've all come better like closer together. It might not be monumental steps together, but a few steps closer together, even things that we're talking about now. I know we all have like somewhat of a friendship before this, but I think there's opportunities now for us to, sort of strengthen that. What do you think, Bob?
Well, you raised a really good example where a conversation between friends and getting two and two together, the charities such as Andrea's and Manny's band, and next thing you know, you're raising $30,000 or more for charities and community, because charities, let's not just say charities, because it is for the community. It is to help some of the less fortunate. It is to help the community be better. And that's really what I think COVID brought forward and brought people together. As a community, we put our different hats on and we got creative and we came together in order to help each other out. So the creativity, the good that came out of it was the fact that we are a lot more focused on the community, a lot more focused on the needs of your neighbor.
Yeah. So is there any things like that you guys want to ask? We got a politician here. We can lock them down. I know, Andrea, you've been around to politics a lot, so you're like, enough with the politics, maybe. But Manny, you got any ideas or thoughts that you want to ask Bob about? Or?
Well, no, nothing specific really. Just, we were chatting before, obviously, just talking like how to connect everybody, how to connect more music into the streets of Newmarket and Main Street. And I love what the town's been doing with Riverwalk. So what are any plans of like more of that stuff once we get out of COVID, obviously, more...
Absolutely, Manny. This year we had such grand plans, and what we built last year for the concert series, the entertainment, and so on, we were going to build up on that. Needless to say, we had to cancel a lot of public events, but stay tuned. We do want to make it bigger and better. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we will be looking at and studying together with the BIA, which stands for the Business Improvement Association, which is the businesses of Main Street, is how real can it be to close Main Street for a little longer than just certain event, maybe for weekends or maybe for a few weeks. So we're going to revisit that, being very conscious of the fact that some of the businesses have limitations, and some of the residents that live above business, we have to take that into consideration. So we have to do a study all throughout. But the ideal situation would be to make this a venue where Riverwalk, the success of Riverwalk Commons, can be moved a little bit further or expanded into Main Street, and we can bring in the music festivals or local talent.
Isn't it kind of cool that, not sort of to cut you off, but isn't it kind of cool that that concept is almost like old school? Like if you probably went back 100 years, everybody culturally met on the main street, and they, farmers market was every day, and there was always people connecting, and it probably is the pulse of Canadiana or even North Americana, right? Or and you see it in Europe where, I forget what it's called, but the plazas where,
the piazza.
Piazza, right. Piazza. I was waiting for my time for Manny to jump in. But yeah, the piazza was the place, and it still is, where everyone kind of congregates and listens to music, and there's people juggling and having a espresso. And we're leaving Andrea way out there on the outside. Maybe we gotta get her in on the Andrea. What's been going on? I know you talked about Dancing with the Stars, and that was like inspiring for you to be part of it. But certainly with charities, I mean, Manny and I are looking at ways to help charities, and I know Bob and the town have done a lot of things to support the business community, et cetera. But what's going on with you guys? You guys must be super challenged in this time.
It has been. It definitely has been a challenging year. I think I had 5 or 6 events that I was supposed to do this year, and unfortunately with COVID, we've had to rethink them, and we haven't been able to do the events like we would have hoped to. So now we are in obviously the last quarter of our year, and we are trying to come up with other ways other ways that we can come up with some funds to raise money for these children, to help as many as we can by the end of the year. And then, of course, looking at 2021, hoping that, things start to ease up and we are start to open up and be able to do our events
Do the
again.
Dancing with the Stars
We're
and
looking,
those kind of things again. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like there's everybody's looking at things in three different scenarios in the sense that it's like everything goes forward as normal. So we have our run, we have our Dancing with the Stars, we have whatever events we can plan for next year, or we have limitations, or we can't do anything at all. So then if we can't do any of the big events at all, what else can we do? So we've relied on virtual. We've done some virtual events, but it really is starting to think outside the box and come up with some more creative ways.
So I think the genesis of this podcast is actually a matter of connecting all the neighbors. We're going to have listeners, certainly for everybody on the show today. On our podcast page, we're going to be listing everyone's email addresses and contact information. For example, we want everyone to be accessible. I know Manny's got some ideas around like taking what we've started in Newmarket and like super concentrating on charities and actually nudging that even further along. So I would encourage you guys to talk after the show. Excuse me. But I would also encourage our listeners to, share their ideas on how, because sometimes I think I've kind of used this during COVID. We got to take the Etch-a-Sketch and we got to turn it upside down and shake it and then start redrawing things. And I think COVID has allowed us to maybe take that position. And so I'm not suggesting that things are good or bad, but I think there are definitely ways, and I would potentially have some ideas even myself on, like, I think, for example, with Manny and I, on some level, even with the comedy nights, I think we've changed how bands could get booked into bars because we're actually driving now more revenue for the bands than they historically made from the venue. We can almost deliver the band, Manny doesn't want to hear it this way, but almost deliver the band for free to the venue if we can activate the audience to support the band, right? That's in essence what we've done. And then we're activating the audience saying, okay, we're all kind of, as a community, we're all sort of benefiting. Don't forget the charity too, because as Andrea said, 5 events have to be canceled. What does it cost, Andrea? I think it's like, just for an assisted device, I think it's like $3,500 per child, isn't it? Something like that on average. I mean, it can go up to tens of thousands, I'm sure. So is there a lot of kids that are impacted right now, or?
Yeah, we've got, I think there is just under 100 children that we have on the waiting list right now for equipment for this year.
So that could be like $500,000 you guys are short. Something could be more than that.
Depending on what equipment it is, will depend on the cost. And some of them, like you can get a wheelchair, a regular wheelchair that can cost, a couple $1,000s, but if it's got to be custom fitted for the child and it has to have certain things, it can go up and cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So
you guys obviously have a big need, and it's important for us to be supportive of that. I think, do you have any ideas around fundraising ideas, Bob?
Well,
I think it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrea.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's great that you're opening this up and getting people involved in the community and being able to give their feedback. Going back to what Bob said very early on in this conversation, Newmarket is very close knit, and it is more like a big extension of your family. You don't go anywhere where you don't know anyone. So I think it's great to be able to include everybody like this and get people involved.
Yeah, and I think it's also good to sort of shine a light or a spotlight, not necessarily shining a positive light, but shining a light on all the needs and things that we all have. And it's okay, even with Manny, when we first hooked up around the music stuff, it was like, we're starving. And paraphrasing, but and I'm like, okay, what can we do so people aren't starving. And, you have needs, Andrea, and I think, as long as we can shine a light and sort of, it's kind of like 4 heads are better than one. And I think we end up coming up with better solutions. And they're not always home runs, right? Sometimes you do things. I know even with dealing with Snapped, I always use this as an example. I'm like, maybe I'll have an idea for your restaurant. It's like, bring your dog or something like that. And then someone gets fleas and that was a bad idea. But it's never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing to try things. I think it's a mistake when you don't and you wallow, right? Go, oh, it's poor us. We're all poor us, right? So why don't we just take the positive approach and see what we can do? But it sounds like to me that, we've got our stuff on a roll here, Manny, music and comedians and stuff. Bob, I know politicians, you guys are always good. You get your paychecks all the time, right?
Well, it's not that easy. I mean, we definitely earn our paychecks. There's no doubt about it because there's no set hours.
Yeah.
But I was just going to add to some of the creativity, and it seems like everybody needed to reinvent themselves this time around. Everything from businesses to musicians to charities and the town. It was unheard of way back, and I'll give you an example, to have a council meeting if you're not there physically. It was mandated. So through emergency process, we were able to do and keep the town moving, make decisions that are the right decisions for the residents, such as deferring tax payments, deferring certain payments that people are struggling with, making arrangements in order to pay utilities, all these things. And also, of course, we had to quickly react to the most vulnerable residents, and by providing meals because everybody else had to shut down.
Yeah, that was super commendable. And I think from my perspective, all levels of government as Canadians really dove in and said, we've got to work together. I think citizens have. And recognizing, as you say, most vulnerable people and sometimes just basic needs of food and shelter and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I want to commend the town and
you.
other levels of government for all those things they did.
But that's what I mean about getting creative, and charities for as an example as well. Obviously, there's a huge impact by not having Dancing with the Stars that Andrea is involved with.
Mostly on Manny's feet. It's impacting his need to groove.
But you go and look for different things, and sessions like today, like what we're having, 4 of us having these conversations, getting to learn and understand each other's challenges. There's ideas. We all have great ideas. And like you said, some ideas might work, some might not work. But talking about, going virtual, maybe few events in order to compensate for one big one on Andrea's side, or Manny's gigs. Next thing you know, you're raising money for charity. Maybe some of the money could be funneled to, charities such as Dancing with the Stars. And
I think if we all kind of work together.
Yeah.
Now, really inspiring conversation we all seem to have. I know we could all. Andrew talks a lot. I know Andrew talks a lot. So and so do you, Bob. So maybe Manny, you and I could just go out for a coffee and talk for a little bit. But actually, I'm going to start wrapping it up now, and I want to encourage everyone to our listeners to send us and make comments. We're definitely going to be posting some of these like snippets of our show onto social media, and if you want to make comments, I want to encourage everyone to think about us as a community. Today was about all of us, but maybe even a bit of a skew towards Andrea and kind of some of her more immediate needs for Easter seals. So I want to encourage everyone to shoot your ideas for Easter seals on how they can make money or perhaps even make a donation online. I want to encourage people to Friday nights go to Market Brewing and listen to music as coordinated by Manny. He's assembling some awesome musicians. We do have great musicians in Newmarket. And so there's something to do on a Friday. Thursday, I know at Snap, we have comedy that also streams like the music on Facebook. And I know, Bob, you've come to comedy and music. So I want to encourage that. I know we have a big gig at the end of the month, but some of you might be listening to this a couple of months from now. So who knows? But on behalf of everyone and Conversations in Newmarket with Neighbur, we want to thank you guys for being on the first show and hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been an honor.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.